Welcome to another episode of Lift Light and Lead with Legacy Contracts. Whether this is your first time listening or you're returning for more, we're very glad you're here. This podcast is for attorneys who want more than just efficiency. You want clarity about how your firm actually operates, how decisions are made, and where strain quietly forms beneath the surface. Today's episode is part of The Hidden File, a space where we examine things that shape law firms long before they become visible. The overlooked systems, the unspoken assumptions, and the decisions that quietly determine whether a firm feels stable or strained. Our intention here isn't to add noise or quick fixes, but it's to name what's been operating unseen so you can lead with more calm, confidence, and clarity. Let's open the file. So for 2026, we've decided to move this podcast segment to a monthly discussion to talk about all the things that Legacy has released, our articles, blog posts, books, products, YouTube channels, all the things that have been discussing different topics and bringing them to a conclusion, wrapping them up essentially with this podcast at the end of the month. So to kickstart 2026, these are 4 of the themes that we have discussed in January thus far. Urgency as a system, not a feeling, effort replacing structure, ownership drifting upwards, and how undefined responsibility becomes one of the most expensive design choices a firm makes. With this podcast episode, we're going to walk through each of these topics, provide reflection questions at the end of the show and in the show notes, and then conclude the month very nicely to transition smoothly into February. Speaking of February, I cannot believe that it is already February. This month completely flew by. So much has happened, and that's a good thing, you know? Being productive, getting things done, enjoying life, doing things, making the days doable, essentially. But in light of the first topic, what if you are at a place of urgency every single day? What if your life constantly feels like fires that need to be put out and everything is chaotic? You have constant emails that need to be answered, phone calls that keep coming in, new clients that are or new leads that are trying to become clients of your firm, all those things. What if your day-to-day feels like urgency? The first touch point that we have with urgency being a system and not a feeling is done unconsciously. There's not many attorneys, if any, who walk around wanting their days to look like chaos, to always need urgency to be the fuel for them to get things done. So with that specific theme that we have been talking about with urgency as a system, it kind of works itself into your workflows and your systems to have it become something that looks like the normal day-to-day for you. And this can really feel at times like a good source of motivation. If you constantly have fires underneath you that need to be put out, that can be a way for you to have some kind of accountability. Essentially, that's not something that can fuel you long term. That is one of the starting points for burnout. Getting to a place where you feel like people always want something from you. You feel like there's always a need literally everywhere you turn. There's deadlines that are coming up. There's emails that need to be responded to. There's clients that need to be called back, all of those things. Having urgency as a system can fuel you when you need it, but it's not something that needs to be done long term. Having urgency as a system not only causes a lot of burnout and emotional drain for you as the attorney, but it also does the same thing for your clients and for your employees. If your clients feel like they constantly have to provide some sense of urgency just to hear back from you, that can be draining for them as well. And then even with your with your employees, if they feel like they always have to constantly push you or give you some kind of like deadline or something that triggers you that way, it can be draining for them as well. And so with our articles, blog posts, all the other things that we've mentioned, discussing urgency as a system is not something that can sustain you long term. It's good every now and then if you need like a boost here and there, or if you forget some things. It is an accountability partner when you need it, but for a long-term thing, having urgency in the middle of your system is not something that's sustainable. So really getting to the root cause of why we're constantly needing to have this boost of urgency, where the repetitive themes are coming from, is that starting point to really dig into what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we want to really provide and have our firm operate off of a sense of more calm consistency on a day-to-day basis. For the next touch point, we reviewed effort replacing structure in the terms of communication, where if ownership isn't defined with communication, then your clients are asking you the same questions multiple times, which leads into that sense of urgency. Your staff will interrupt you for the answers that they need, which also again leads back to that urgency. And this kind of ties into what we were discussing previously as this being an unconscious system design with regards to communication and the effort that you have that is replacing that structure, being intentional with designing your systems and leaving room and space for there being times for urgency, but also making space for that clarity, having that communication with your staff, with your clients, with anybody really who comes in contact with your firm, and being able to kind of get ahead of those times of urgency, but also those times where you have more and more effort that is coming in to replace structure. All of this is in alignment with deciding intentionally how to form your workflows, form your structures, how you want your firm to operate, how you want your employees to interact, the workflows, and all those different things, all really coming together very nicely to all in all be your law firm, how it operates, how people experience your firm, and so on. The third touch point is in regards to ownership and that really drifting upwards. And this, of course, tying into effort and urgency, we discussed ownership really in alignment with billing. The system flows that have billing on like manual reminders or having to play catch up every single month or even every single year with the backlog of overdue invoices, clients who are paying late, clients who aren't paying at all, last minute cleanups before the invoices go out, and so forth. Having this system, and in one of the articles that we had released showing how much revenue you actually lose with not intentionally designing your billing systems, is not really the fault of intention to detail. It is structure. It's about how you're designing this, how your workflows are, what's the seamless process that you can have, and making sure that we account for delays and friction, avoiding strained client trust, and assuring that this doesn't trickle down to leadership, making sure that we take care of this up front to have everything flow seamlessly. And this kind of ties into that sense of urgency and effort, because if every single month you are trying to fly through these invoices and make sure, they get out to your clients and then your clients are paying on time, that constantly puts you back on that hamster wheel of really having that tight grip and control over making sure your invoices are paid, but then also making sure that your time is entered in accurately, your expenses are covered, and the clients are receiving your invoices, they're looking at them, and then on the edge of your seat trying to see if they have any questions, if they have any concerns, if their bill is too much, why are they being billed for certain things? All those things tie back into urgency and effort instead of reflecting your structures. And so with this ownership and not wanting it to really, drift back upwards into the design flaws, we want to really ensure that all of this is seamless, that all of this kind of flows, and we are able to create a space of not just client trust, but employee trust as well. And the final point with this is how undefined responsibility becomes a really expensive design choice. And we touched on this a little bit with how having urgency and effort as like the foundation for your billing really equals a loss of revenue. It does the same thing with any other task in your firm. If you have a system that's kind of, designed as you go along, that leaves for a lot of gaps in communication, a lot of gaps in ownership and the overall flow of your firm. If more and more employees are spending time either ignoring tasks because they don't understand who's responsible for them, or they run around trying to figure out who's responsible for this, who should be responsible for this, why is this not done, whatever else have you, that also leaks into the loss of revenue. You have employees who are spending more time trying to figure things out instead of having the proper preparation with your systems to just do. This also leaks in or leads into your clients as well. If they don't know who should they reach out to ask certain questions for, it causes them to go on a roundabout. If they need billing questions answered, that's not always something the attorney can be responsible for. That could be legal admin or the paralegal. But if they don't know that, then that's a waste of time on the attorney end because they're answering phone calls, and now that leaks into non-billable hours and all those different things. So really looking at how you can get ahead more so of naming the responsibility, defining who should be taking ownership of what, really on the back end, really make sure that you are not losing out on that revenue that will constantly come up. Now, it's not saying that you have to get ahead of literally everything, that things come up every now and again. You can't control all of it. But for the things that either are repetitive or the basic things of like billing questions, HR questions, and so on and so forth, those are kind of like the regular things that you would expect to deal with a law firm. And those can really be named up front. You can figure out which paralegals are responsible for what and which attorneys or what questions should go to the attorneys. That can all be included in your design choices for your firm to make sure that they're not costing you on the latter end. So to conclude this segment, we really wanted the intention to kind of take shape and focus on when in fact your intake, communication, your billing, your ownerships are undesigned, the effort of not just you, but your clients and your employees then become the force that's really holding the foundation of your firm until it eventually collapses. And that can look like loss of revenue, loss of clients, loss of employees, etc. And so what we want to do really is get ahead of it, intentionally design your firm to ensure that you're not losing out on all these things, but to also make sure that you last it for the long haul. So we have about 5 reflection questions that we are going to post in the show notes, but I'll pose a few of them here just for a good place for you to start, just to look at your firm as a whole, where you are, where you want to be, and what are the gaps that are there that you can really start to look at and figure out how you want to design for the better. So the first question is, where in your firm does responsibility constantly drift upwards instead of landing where it belongs? And then the second question is, which recurring urgent tasks exist because ownership was never intentionally designed? And we want to make sure that we're not saying to take care of all of this up front and move on. There are things that are going to come up literally throughout the year and all the years to come that are going to cause you to have to go back to the drawing board. Your firm will increase, your clientele will increase, your revenue, all those different things. That's going to cause you to constantly have to go back to the drawing board. But what this is doing is making sure that you are starting from a stabilized place and not a place of effort and urgency. So if today's conversation resonated with you, you can explore this concept further with our articles we released for the month, our YouTube videos, even our blog posts that are all on our website. All of those are different takes where we approach the same idea from a more structured visual lens. But here on this podcast, The Hidden File, it exists to slow things down, to reflect, contextualize, and really give language to what many firms feel, but they haven't necessarily been taught to name. So we hope that these insights help you move forward with greater clarity and less internal strain. Law firms aren't built in moments of urgency, but they are built through consistent, intentional choices. This is Legacy Contracts, and until next time, keep leading with clarity.